Welcome back, everybody, to the second or third episode of the new year, 2026. I'm here with Dr. J. Dunn, the founder and creator of MyHappyGenes and Wholistic Methylation, and Dr. J's Healthy Rays, which it's just a fabulous lotion thing. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting me, GC.
Yeah. So it's been about 2 years, I think, since I interviewed you last. It was 3 years ago now that I think about it.
Seems
So,
longer than that. Seems like you've been with us for a long time.
so what you're saying is I'm really old.
Getting old and stale. No.
Hopefully
You've
not
been,
stale. I know I'm getting old. I can't avoid that. I've tried, but
no, you've been an amazing part of our company. I can't believe you haven't
no,
been there the whole time.
thank you. So, why you're here? We want to talk about a couple of things about genetics. Genetic testing is a hugely popular part of our wellness journey these days for many people. There's ancestry, there's testing to see whether certain drugs are going to be good for you, testing for genetic potential risks if you're going to have a baby. And there's lifestyle testing, nutrigenomics, that kind of thing, which is where your company comes in. But your company is different than other companies. So can you tell us why?
Yeah, and I don't necessarily want this to be about sales, but I want to point out the differences so that people, when they're out there looking at different genetic testing companies, they know what they're looking for
Yeah.
because there are different concepts out there, as you mentioned. And there are some companies that do something called pharmacogenetics, which they're testing for what drugs would be okay for people to take and not okay for people to take. And even in the mental health realm, there are companies that do testing to see which neurotransmitters are off or how well they would do on certain antidepressants or anti-anxiety kind of medications. So that's not something that we're interested in. I really got interested in this field because I saw the application with biochemistry, looking at genetic variants in our biochemical pathways, which I know maybe sounds like gobbledygook, but essentially, when we look at our body at the very core of where disease and imbalances begin, we're looking at biochemistry inside the cell. But inside that cell, lots of things are happening. We're making energy out of our food. We're taking out the trash. We're detoxing, making neurotransmitters, breaking them down, making hormones, breaking those down, histamine and breaking it down. So there are all these kind of functions that are going on at the cellular level. And I have found really interesting information about genetic variants that control how well they work. How well do you detox, or how well do you make energy, or how well do you make neurotransmitters? And came to this field because I was looking for my own answers to lifelong depression, and I found them. And I'd looked a lot of different places, and this was the first thing that really gave me a major breakthrough in balancing my brain chemistry. And so I really wanted to understand it better and bring it to the world, and that's what I've done. But to go further into answering your question, because we actually went back and forth about this concept before about genes being able to turn on and turn off. Is that kind of where you were going with that?
Yeah, let me go back a second and tell people what a gene variant is, because we know what a gene is. So what's a variant?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I get ahead of myself sometimes. You get a set of genes from both parents, a set from mom, a set from dad, and those combine to give you your unique genetic code. But you can inherit what are called variants, and they are a change in one little nucleotide or base pair of that gene that then the code isn't the same as a normal code would be. And these are often adaptations. Nature plays with variations to see if, will this person survive better than this one and under these conditions? And so you inherit millions of years of evolution has played with variations. But if you inherited variants, let's say in your ability to detox, which can slow down your ability to get toxins out of your body, then that's not very adaptive for today's world because we're exposed to so many more toxins than any generation in the past. And that's what we look for, are where are your variants, where are your pathways inhibited by these variants, and how can we work with those?
And so when we talk about variants, you could have a variant that doesn't matter and won't slow something down. But you could
Yes.
also have a variant that speeds things up. It's the same thing in a different way, right?
This doesn't happen, and that's another one of the inaccuracies that I want to address is you don't get faster than normal moving codes. You get either the normal code, which is at a certain codes for an enzyme that functions at a certain speed. And you can have a variant that makes it slower than normal. So you don't have one that's going to speed up an enzyme
Okay.
more than the normal code. You're going to have either 100% function on that enzyme, or you're going to have 30% reduced or 70% reduced. Or
Okay.
I get that question from patients a lot. Do I have the fast moving or the slow moving comped variant? I said, no. Wait, let's back up.
I think part of that comes from there's a book called Slow Genes or something, or there's one called
Dirty,
Dirty Genes.
dirty genes. Yeah.
And I think we're anthropomorphizing genes, right? They're just
Yeah.
code. They're not like fast, slow, dirty, clean. They're
Right.
just in there. So now you've just introduced another concept. You said enzyme, and a minute ago you were talking about a gene. So break that down for us.
Yeah, thank you. Because this is the biggest concept that kind of sets us apart from other companies. And so we're looking at what are the enzymes, if we're going to focus like on the detox pathways, what are the enzymes that break down toxins? And what code did you get to tell your body to make those? And that's the gene codes for those enzymes.
Okay.
So if you have the wrong code for an enzyme, it can be moving slower than normal and not breaking down toxins as efficiently. And that's the key is we're not trying to play with the gene. We're not turning genes on, turning genes off. We're looking at what did you inherit? What messages is your body getting? If it's slower than normal, can we give it what are called cofactors or coenzymes to get that enzyme to work better? Because you've inherited that wrong code, that enzyme will be just sluggish, but we can add in like a vitamin or a mineral. It's very specific for that enzyme that speeds it back up to somewhat normal speed so that you break down toxins easier. Does that make sense?
And so out in the world of social media and wellness influencers and books, and there is a tendency for a supplement to get popular.
Yeah.
And some of the supplements we've talked about on our Q&A videos are things like turmeric, creatine. But anyway, isn't one supplement that would be good for everybody? And why is that? If it's good on the whole, like everybody's saying, we've got all these tests and results and we've done all this data mining, but how is it possible that it could be good for everybody?
Yeah, there isn't any one size fits all in anything. And that's the thing I've had to learn over the years because you'll read these studies and it's, oh my God, this is the most amazing supplement and everybody should take it. And turmeric is one of the prime examples because so many people take it thinking they're reducing inflammation, and it does do that. And it helps connective tissue, and it's an antioxidant and anti-cancer and all these good things. But it also has an effect on your genes, on your enzymes that are coded by those genes. And so one in specific is the MAO enzyme is inhibited by turmeric. Turmeric is an antagonist to that enzyme. So if you've already got a genetic variant in the MAO gene that codes for the MAO enzyme, and that's the enzyme that breaks down serotonin, and your serotonin levels are already too high, which that can happen too, and you inhibit it even more with turmeric, you're going to find that person getting very grouchy and irritable and increasing ADD and ADHD. So that's why we look at the foods very specifically for your genetic variants. You may think that all vegetables are good for you. It may not be. There are genetic variants that can make tomatoes and potatoes and eggplant and those things bad for you, or it's just so individual. And that's the big take home here is that there isn't a one size fits all.
Well, I fell prey to the everybody should be eating fermented foods thing, if you'll remember back when you first read my genetic report. And I joke because I was finally able to stop drinking kombucha. My friends were like, oh, you could replace a glass of wine with kombucha. And I would try that. And I just can't do it. But I would suck it down. And it just, ended up that it's a histamine trigger. And I was battling New Jersey histamine triggers. And you were like, oh, that's probably not good. And fermented foods, basically histamine up, get rid of the fermented foods. And so it helped a lot. I do miss sauerkraut, I'll be honest. I might occasionally, I haven't had it in years, but and it's again, it's not all or nothing for me. I can have a little sauerkraut and it's not going to send me into a spasm. But for some people, they're that sensitive. A bite of a food that isn't agreeing with their genetic blueprint is really going to throw them over the edge. Like you, for instance, there are certain foods you can't eat at all.
Yeah, for sure. Chocolate, unfortunately,
Sadness.
and wine and cheese is also not my friend. So that sucks. But if the thing that I tell people, if they haven't had their genes tested, is to do a food diary and look at what you're feeling the next day, especially because sometimes these reactions aren't immediate. They may be down the line, especially when it comes to biochemistry, because it takes a minute for the metabolites to build up and create symptoms. They may not be feeling that irritability today, but tomorrow they're like, why am I so grouchy? Why is everybody pissing me off today? And if they look back at what did you eat yesterday? And oh, I did have curry yesterday. I wonder if that's why I'm grouchy. It's amazing how that can put together patterns for you. We sometimes feel like we're at the whim of, I don't know why I was grouchy today. I don't know why I was depressed. You may have stepped on a landmine.
There are so many areas where I've heard people say, do you think this has a genetic component? Do you think it's possible? Let's just take sleep, for instance. Is there a genetic relationship to our habit? Not our habits, because we create our habits, but the way we respond to certain habits depending on our genetic profile?
Yeah, very much. I have the early waking genes. And so I'm up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, not by choice. It's just like boing. Okay, what are we doing now? Where other people don't have that and they may sleep till 10 or 11. I'm so jealous of people who can sleep in. Wow, that sounds amazing. But then I fall asleep pretty early. Not much fun after 8:30, 9 o'clock. It's interesting for couples too, because sometimes there are fights. Like, why don't you just stay up with me? I feel lonely without you. And it may be that's their genetic pattern, is they're a night owl or they're an early waker. And that can be a source of conflict for couples. But if they know, the cool thing is if it's, no, I have that gene, it's not personal. Okay.
Right.
It's on purpose. I had a couple one time that came to me and I was looking at their genetic variants, and one of them had slow moving detox pathways and she was sensitive to all kinds of chemicals and perfumes and she just chemically sensitive. And her husband had no empathy for that because he had the low empathy genes. So what is the matter with you? I'm living in the same environment as you and it doesn't bother me. Why are you so sensitive? He just thought she was making it up. And so I said, here, look, Dave, this is Chris's pattern. You can see she doesn't detox the same way you do. See the difference here? He said, oh, yeah. And then with her, I'm like, Dave's never going to be a warm fuzzy. He's not. He doesn't
Got the
have,
wrong guy for that.
You got the wrong guy for that. He's really a solid guy, hardworking, takes care of everything, fantastic guy, not warm and fuzzy. He had low oxytocin. So it was really, they both were like, oh, I get it. I'm like, don't expect this out of this person and expect that out of the other person when that's their genetic makeup and it isn't personal. So that's helpful.
Oh, absolutely. You've talked about the entrepreneur gene, and people would probably have a hard time believing that, but explain what gene it is, why that makes a good entrepreneur.
Yeah, this is the dopamine receptor, number 3, actually, that's in a certain part of the brain. And if you have a genetic variant there, it makes you always looking for that dopamine hit. But in this case, the dopamine hit will come from thinking up a new way to do things, a new idea, a new project. And it isn't always about, I'm going to start a business. It can be, it can lead to that. But it makes it difficult for that person to follow other people's directions because they're always thinking, I could do it better. And when they do it better and they figure it out, they get a dopamine hit. And so it's almost an addiction, if you will. Those dopamine hits can be addictive in different categories.
I know a lot of entrepreneurs on social media will say, I'm not employable. I'm no longer employable, or I was never a good W2. And I wonder, do you have that gene or is it just your choice to be that?
Yeah, it's fascinating because I talk to all different kinds of people and I look at their genetic reports, and some are way in the green, which means they're very low in that entrepreneurial tendencies. And I'm like, I bet you're a really good employee. And they're like, yeah, I haven't missed a day of work and I follow directions really well. And I've been at the same job for years and I love my boss. It's just like, oh my God, that would be death for me.
Me too. I could love my boss, but following rules has never been easy for me. Just not. My
No.
mother, if she were here, would probably have lots of stories to confirm that.
It's funny because I've been talking to people about something called pathological demand avoidance. And I think this may be one of the main genes associated with that because we're like, even following a recipe is difficult. No, if I had a little more cinnamon here, this can be amazing. Can make it better. Yeah. So the don't tell me what to do gene.
I like it. I think you should call that. What's an endophis again? Some of the genes have really fun names.
Yeah, the endophis is involved in where energy production happens at the cellular level in the mitochondria function. And so it can lead to some pretty nasty mitochondrial dysfunction and neurological dysfunction. I came across this particular genetic variant when I was working with a guy that I thought had ALS. ALS typically starts from the upper limbs. It'll start in the hands and move its way down. But this was starting in the feet. No, I'm sorry, I have it backwards. ALS starts with the feet and goes up, and this was starting at the hands. And I was like, this is so weird because he couldn't move his arms. Like the arms were completely useless. And it had happened slowly over a period of time. And they checked him for ALS and said, no, it's not what it is. And then so when I got his genes tested, he had 7 genetic variants in that endophis gene. And when I started researching, what is that? That's where I found the neurological problems and potential ALS-like syndrome, which is called Lee syndrome.
Huh.
And, when the thing that I do too is I look at what are the cofactors for that enzyme? How do we upregulate it? How do we make up for the fact that you inherited that? So I did a deep dive. I do a deep dive on all of these enzymes, like how do we work with it? And found the cofactors, which were CoQ10 and L-carnitine. And when you combine the two of them, it can actually upregulate the activity of that enzyme and reduce neurological symptoms and damage.
Wow.
Yeah. We laugh about the endophis, but it's a nasty.
Yeah.
It's nasty.
It's just a funny name and some of the names, like the MTHFR,
Yeah, the mother flipper.
mother flipper. We should talk about that because that's a popular, every time I turn around, somebody's talking about methylation. So clear up some of the confusion about methylation.
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I think people are starting to understand it a little better. So many of the genetic companies are focused on the MTHFR. If you have the MTHFR gene, the methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, and you don't make that enzyme correctly, then you can't break folic acid you can't convert it into the active form. And that reduces something called methylation. And methylation is important for preventing birth defects, for repairing RNA and DNA, for upregulating other activities in the body, other biochemical pathways. It's really important. And so everybody was just focused on that one and saying, oh, if you have that, then you should take methylfolate. And I fell into that first too, because I got some of my patients tested and I was like, oh, wow, you are homozygous. Both parents gave you the wrong code for MTHFR. And there are a couple of particular alleles that are more potent and create more problems. So the MTHFR A1298C and the MTHFR C677T, 2 most studied genetic variants in the MTHFR gene. There's thousands of studies done. And people don't understand that it is one enzyme in a pathway. And so if you give somebody methylfolate, you start up a bunch of other pathways. They're interrelated, like cogs in a wheel. They're going to turn each other. And if you don't know what's going to happen downstream, you're going to get in trouble. And so initially in my clinic, we were doing some research on this, and a bunch of us started taking methylfolate because I have a heterozygous. And at that time, everybody's saying, oh, if you have heterozygous or homozygous, then you should take methylfolate. And I was like, okay, let's try that. And we all felt amazing for about a week. And then really sick, like headache and nausea and fatigue, and none of us could go to work because we were just, ugh. And I was like, wow, what just happened? And so we did a bunch of testing and found that you turn on detox pathways really fast when you give methylfolate. You've turned homocysteine into cysteine and then into a sulfur molecule, and glutathione is produced, but you just dumped a bunch of toxins that have been sitting in your system all at once into the bloodstream. And the body goes, ah, deal with this. The liver goes, ah, too much, too fast. Kidneys go, no, help. And so it can create a lot of problems. And we knew that was happening because we were doing a urine catch where we would do a urine test from doctor's data with no provocation. We were just like, I wonder what's happening here. We could see all the heavy metals coming out of the body really quickly without provoking, without doing chelation or anything to provoke them. They were coming out. And that's how we knew, ah, it's
Back to the
done.
drawing board.
And so there are a lot of people out there. There are support groups, Facebook groups, et cetera. It's strictly on the MTHFR gene. They're like, oh, I'm heterozygous. Which methylfolate should I take? And it's, I don't know.
Wait.
You got to understand the interactivity of the pathways. It's rare that I give methylfolate. It's too harsh for most people, and for some people, very adverse, that they're already overmethylated and can't take it. So you have to look at the whole picture. And that's where I started filling in the pieces of the puzzle. Oh, what's happening downstream? Oh, sulfur is being made and we need to get that out. What enzyme is that? Oh, it's the sulfur transferase. What does it need? Oh, it needs molybdenum. We started looking at these interrelationships, and that's where that map that I use, the biochemical pathway map, came from, was filling in all these little pieces that we found along the way.
Now, methylation exactly is what?
So that's a good question. And this is what really led me into studying this topic, was that word. I kept hearing that word, methylation. I go, what is that? Essentially, what's happening is folic acid, as we talked about, the MTHFR enzyme converts folic acid into methylfolate. And then B12 is converted into methyl B12. And those two active vitamins create a methyl group. And that's a carbon and 3 hydrogen molecules connected. And that little methyl group is incredibly important. And this is where the turning on genes and turning off genes happens. If you methylate correctly and you have enough methyl groups in the body, certain processes are going to happen more efficiently. If you're low in methylation, a lot of things can happen. Birth defects and cancer and heart disease and DNA damage will happen. So it's an important concept. But when we get methylating, we turn on those processes. Detox will happen. Neurotransmitters are made correctly. Too much methylation, and you're going to be in a world of hurt also, because there are all of the other pathways downstream that are affected by that. But the methyl group has this unique ability to cover up a gene and keep it from being turned on by the environment. And so that's what if some people refer to that as turning a gene off. It's not really what's happening. We're just putting a protective coating over it so that, let's say you had a cancer gene or a BRCA gene or something like that, and you weren't methylating correctly, the environment can turn that gene on. That's not the right term, but it essentially cause it to start expressing. And when it does, it can start a cancer up. The methylation is governed by innate intelligence. We can't say, I'm going to give methyl groups to turn off the BRCA gene. You can't do that. It also can turn off a tumor suppressor gene. So now if you turn that off, and I'm using that term incorrectly, you've stopped suppressing a tumor. So we don't know what happens in the body. We just want to get it balanced. Too much methylation, not good. Too little methylation, not good. So if we can get methylation just right, we rely on the body to function like it's supposed to. Turn the right genes, cover up the right genes, open up the right genes at the right time. And our methylation patterns are set at birth. And so if you, during gestation, let's say your mother is under tremendous stress, your methylation patterns are going to be very different than if she wasn't. So those are called methylation patterns, and they're set onto the genes because now the body's saying you're going to be born into a stressful environment. We need these genes and these enzymes to work over time. And so you're set up for a lifetime of stress responses that may be hyper than if somebody went through a very calm, relaxed pregnancy. Those methylation patterns are set for life. And they also can be changed. And we hear a lot about, Bruce Lipton talks about, oh, you can change your genes through positive thinking, through meditation, through emotional work. You can change the methylation patterns. It takes time and it takes effort because they're pretty much set up for nature to survive whatever you're going to encounter when you're born. But those can change. And there are companies that also measure methylation patterns. And so those can, let's say you start eating a bunch of dairy products and you haven't eaten much of them before. The body's going to go, oh, let's express the enzymes that make taste. It's going to start turning them on because your environment just changed. You just started eating a bunch of, or you just got into a stressful environment. There is that methylation patterns that kind of turn on and off. Again, not the right term, but either express or stop expressing. And if you think about it, the little thing that we start from, the zygote, right? All the cells in your body have the same genes, right? So how does one gene say, I'm going to turn on the genes that make your eyes blue. I'm going to turn on the gene that makes your hair red. What happens there? How is that all happening? You're turning off the ones that are going to cause blonde hair, and you're turning on the ones that are causing red hair. So the body is being told how to express these genes from very early on. And so that is mobile, and you can measure that. And there are companies that measure what methylation patterns do you have right now. Are they going to lead to earlier death? Shorter telomeres, which are the little tails at the end of our DNA that tell us the shorter they are, the shorter your lifespan. The longer they are, the better your lifespan. So there are companies, in fact, the company that we were just working with, True Diagnostics, is going to only testing for those kinds of things. So get it tested today, you get it checked in a year, it's going to be different.
So your genetics haven't changed.
Right.
The expression of those enzymes have
the methylation patterns.
Methylation patterns.
Yeah. So we're not looking at those. There are companies that do that, and that's great. We're looking at something different. We're looking at what genes did you inherit? I always like to know, why did you inherit that? It may be that your ancestors survived during times of famine and you hold on to fat really well. It's, oh, that sucks. But it allowed your ancestors to survive during times of starvation. And so it was adaptive. And that's a really interesting concept to me. But those genes don't change. This is your code. And we're trying to see, and we look at what symptoms are you expressing? Okay, so you inherited the enzymes that allow you to hold on to weight. And that could be beneficial in certain circumstances. But in our modern day times, when we have a lot of weight and we have difficulty losing it because we have a lot of calories available, what is happening? What enzymes can we work with? Can we get in there, upregulate your metabolism enzymes so that you burn fat easier and you make more energy, you make more ATP, which is our basic unit of energy? Can we turn those on? And that's what's exciting to me is, yeah, we can mess with the code that you're given and optimize it. And that's the best way to do biohacking that I can think of, because that is down there at the cellular level and it's based on your genes, your specific genes. So when we look at your symptom picture and we look at your genes, then we know, oh, this gene is expressing and it's creating a problem in your life. And we know how to work with it nutritionally. We know how to give you the right diet. Don't do these things. Don't take your turmeric because it's going to slow down that enzyme that's already slow. And take this nutrient that helps it upregulate and work better, a cofactor or a coenzyme. That was a lot.
It's okay. They'll have a transcript if they want to read back on it.
Okay.
I wanted to tie back to something you said in the beginning, not to be all about sales. This isn't the reason I have you on. I'm happy if people want to go and discover My Happy Genes And it's no secret that we work together, right? But what I have seen in my own life get better because of this understanding of genetics, and at the time symptoms will change, right? Methylation
Yeah.
patterns cause symptoms, they will change. But I
Mhm.
was having this terrible time, as I mentioned before, with histamine. I was getting shots 3 times a week. It was crazy. And after about a year and a half, I got rid of the shots. I all of a sudden stopped taking Zyrtec, but I was taking it every day. I was using nasal sprays twice a day, once to sleep, and all of that's gone because you helped me have an understanding of the things that were adding to the problem. The problem might still be there, probably the genetics still there. The methylation pattern might have changed since I've been doing all this new stuff. But
Yeah.
again, it's if somebody finds my happy genes and decides that's the right thing for them, great. But I just wanted to say that it really has had a huge impact on my life. And I know we've had tons of stories of people that have had so
Yeah.
much relief after being told there's really nothing we can find, or there's nothing we can do, or go get your head checked, whatever. So there is a solution if you feel like you're at your wit's end with what's going on in your health. It's something to consider.
Yeah, and thanks for saying that. Yeah, it's been amazing when we work with the body and get it optimized. What happens? In chiropractic, we have a saying, the power that made the body can heal the body. And it can. If we stop giving your body things that are antithesis to your genes and start giving you the things that are promoting the best of your genes, then amazing things happen. The body just turns around. And the different layers of medical help out there. So, for instance, for me, depression, lifelong, if I had gone to my medical doctor, he would have said, okay, here's an antidepressant. Let's try this one and see how it does. And then we'll try another one, and then we'll try another one. I wasn't really willing to go there because I just had seen so many people suffer from taking antidepressants and having side effects. And I'm like, I'm not going to go there. Go to your natural healthcare practitioner and they're like, oh, let's change your diet. Let's eat more fruits and vegetables and learn to meditate and think positively. We're going to think positive thoughts. And that didn't do anything. And people offer things like, oh, you should smile more, or go listen to Wayne Dyer, or, you know,
God bless Wayne.
oh, I love him, but he didn't really help me. But so I tried all those things for years. And finally I gave up because it was like, nothing's going to work for me. And I don't want to do medications. And I guess this is who I am. This is what I have to deal with. And going even deeper into the physiology and finding out I had genetic variants that don't let my brain make neurotransmitters correctly, serotonin and dopamine. I couldn't do it. My body couldn't do it. Was so relieving to me, number one, because it was like, oh my God, it wasn't me. It wasn't just me being a bad patient or not trying hard enough. And number two, I found out what I could do about it and how to change it. And bam, it just completely changed my life so quickly. And that's what made me so passionate about this. And I've seen some amazing things turn around. When I first started using this, Lyme disease, I saw ALS start to go the other direction. I saw MS start to go the other direction. Rheumatoid arthritis. I had a patient who got completely off all her medication and has been stable now for about 15 years
Wow.
with no flare-ups and no medications. And Hashimoto's thyroiditis. These are things that people say cannot be fixed. It's impossible. That's what they say.
I have a lot to say, Jay.
They do. But I figure this came from somewhere. You weren't born with it. And why is it there? What turned it on? What is happening in the body that made this start happening to you? And cancers, you could have a cancer gene that you're born with, but you don't have cancer when you're born. You acquire it later down the line. Why did that happen? Why did this gene or this enzyme start suddenly making a tumor happen? That's important information. And I think I can't imagine getting any deeper into the physiology to understand the origins of these things than genetics.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, what a great window into why we are the way we are, the genetics, and then the history of the enzymes, the variants, and like you said, if your parents lived through a period of famine, it's adaptability. The MAO, the warrior gene, you might have warriors in your family that had to defend the tribe, the babies, and it's just very interesting to go backwards and find out why we might have these things came into being. in our
Yeah.
bodies. Super interesting.
Yeah. And it gives you the compassion piece is important to me. I call it genetic compassion. And because we're prone to beating ourselves up for being the way we are. Why can't I be happy? Or why can't I be calm? Or why can't I be nicer?
Why can't
So,
I just not smoke?
yes. Yeah. Why am I addicted? And that has been a fun, amazing piece of the puzzle too, is understanding addictions and getting people's brain chemistry balanced so that they don't crave the addictive substance anymore. That's been pretty cool.
What a gift that is.
Yeah. It's this underlying secret that's been sitting there forever, but we're finally getting to see into it. With all the genome project that was finished in 2006, it's given us a great, tremendous amount of information to be able to look into our genome and see why we are the way we are. And that's not to say genes are everything. We talk about genes load the gun and the environment pulls the trigger, for sure. But getting your environment to match your genes, and it's very different for each of us.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting thing. When you go up in altitude, it's what we call the suicide belt because serotonin drops. So
Wow.
somebody that's got an MAO gene that has too much serotonin is going to feel really great at high altitude. And when they come down to a low altitude, they're going to feel really grouchy.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you can find your right like place on Earth too that kind of matches your genetic.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, documented. I don't know what it has to do with lower oxygen levels or what, but
Huh.
documented that it's the suicide belt above 10,000, 7,000 feet. I can't remember, but maybe seven.
Wow. Yeah, altitude wore me out for a couple of days when I was first there in Colorado. I was visiting some people, or in Utah, I forget. But it was hard for me to adapt. So clearly I don't have too much serotonin. Didn't feel great.
Yeah, oxygen levels versus,
Well, oxygen too, yeah. There's that.
serotonin. When I moved to, because I do have the MAO gene, and so I wasn't particularly grouchy in New Mexico, and we're at 5,000, 6,000 feet.
Oh, interesting.
But when I moved to Florida and I got down here, I was like, oh, Florida people irritate me. And Greg one day,
Not me, Greg. We have another Greg at the
yeah,
company.
yeah, I think your MAO may be a little out of balance, honey.
Thank God you had him around at the time.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I always wonder if there could be maybe we should do a slider for that. Where's your best place to live in the world that matches your genetics? That would be.
Is there anything ocean related? The ionic energy that comes off the waves?
I don't know. That's a really good question.
I shall have to look one day.
Yeah, because that's something I crave and I feel so
Me
much.
too. I
Me
feel
too.
absolutely fabulous when I'm there. Could be raining, it doesn't matter. It could be anything. I'm just so happy.
Yeah. I think dopamine goes up, but I'm not sure what the mechanism is.
Hmm.
That would be interesting. Yeah. So when you go to the beach,
Yeah.
your serotonin goes up, your dopamine goes up because the sunshine makes your dopamine go up. And I don't know, maybe we're just programmed to crave the ocean because that's where we really came from.
The water, salt water.
But there's probably more to the biochemistry than that. I don't know.
So many things to research, so little time.
I know it.
But if we get an answer to this, people, we will report back on one of the Q&As. And I want to mention those because every week Dr. J and I do a Q&A with Dr. J. And it is based on questions we've gotten from people that called, people that write in, things we read on social media that we know is just a bunch of hooey. All right, we got to talk about this. You can subscribe to that on our YouTube channel, which is Dr. J Dunn, Dr. J A Dunn, or My Happy Genes on YouTube. Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, just that genetics is an ongoing research project, millions of studies going on at all times. And so there's always new information coming along. And that's one thing that we do too, is to keep our software as up to date as possible. We're always adding in new genes and new information is coming out. So there's still a lot to learn every time you log in. You might see new information. I just found a new gene today I'm very excited about.
What is it? Do tell.
It's called the GATM gene, and it breaks down glycine into creatine. I know a lot of people take creatine for energy and bodybuilding and et cetera. But if you have that genetic variant, then you're not making creatine efficiently. And the cool thing is I can put this into ChatGPT and go, what is the cofactor for this enzyme that's coded by this gene? and it came up P5P, which is B6. So I was like, yes, my job just got so much easier with chat.
And then you have to say, ChatGPT, are you sure this is correct?
Yes, because it has, I've looked up studies. I'll say, can you give me the reference on that? And it'll send me to a reference. It has nothing to do with the enzyme or the gene.
That has happened to me too.
Yeah.
Or it'll send me the same thing over, and I'm like, I need another 3 citations, and it'll send me the first 3.
Yeah.
It definitely, you have to watch it. It's like a naughty child, but it can be really helpful.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm excited for where it will go as it gets more and more accurate. So
Maybe it will.
I know a lot of people are scared of it, and I get that, but boy, it's fun. I think it's fun.
I think it's fun.
Yeah.
This is the future. All right, people. Thank you, Dr. J. We will be back next week with another fabulous guest. Be well till then.
Thanks.